So we're going to learn the Maimer ציון b'mishpat Yipada, the first Maimer. It's really the only Maimer on Parshas Devarim. It's the second piece, which is also an explanation and a medrash, but this is really there's similar points. That's why Tzemach Tzedek put it there, the second one. But the main Maimer here is Tziyun b'mishpat Yipada, which is the Haftarah that we read on this week's Parshas Devarim. Sometimes the Chassidish Parsha, sometimes it's the Parsha. Most of the time it's the Parsha, but sometimes it's the Haftarah. The truth is that the Haftarah is always similar to the Parsha. But now, in the 10 weeks, 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av and 7 weeks after, so it says that we read either the three weeks of Peranius, when the Yidden were rebuked and the negative things that happened, and then the 7 weeks of Nechamta, 7 weeks of comfort. So we're in that period. So the truth is that one might think the Haftarah it's on like a different track. So during the year, most of the time, the reason why we have the Haftarah is because there was a time that they weren't able to read the Torah. And in order to not to forget and to be in the living with the time, meaning living with the Parsha, so they had to substitute that with the Haftarah. But there are Haftarahs which have nothing to do with the Parsha. It's there because of the time of year. But that's what the Shalach Kader says, that even those Haftarahs that are there also have a connection with the Parsha. It's just harder to see the connection between the Parsha and the Haftarah that we read at that time. So getting back to the Alter Rebbe, the Chassidish Parsha, so here we have two rungs to climb, or two hurdles. Number one, as you would with any Haftarah, what's the reason why they chose that Haftarah, how it's connected with the Parsha. And over here, the second one is, it's not only a Haftarah which is usually connected with the Parsha, it's a Haftarah which is really connected with the time of year. Nevertheless, there is a connection with the Parsha. We're not going to go into it now. But that's the Haftarah. This is the Divrei Masel that the Tzemach Tzedek chose for this week. Anyway, this Maimer was said Erev Tisha B'Av. It was in the year Tavkuf Ayin Aleph, so 1811. Okay, Tziyun b'mishpat Yipada v'shaveh b'tzdaka. The Alter Rebbe, as he does sometimes, he doesn't start off with a question, but the question is brought in other places. L'chura, there's a redundancy in this pasuk. The word Tziyun, which literally refers to Yerushalayim, but the Mefarshim explained Tziyun is referring to, based on a Yerushalmi, that the Tziyun is referring to the Yidden. So Tziyun b'mishpat Yipada, how are they going to be redeemed? B'mishpat. Mishpat is through learning Torah. V'shaveha refers to her captives. Who are her captives? The captives also referring to the Yidden. And it's b'tzedakah, through tzedakah, through giving tzedakah. That's how the redemption will come about. So, l'chura, why is there redundancy between Tziyun and Shaveha? It seems like Tziyun is one thing, Shaveha is a second thing. L'chura, Tziyun and Shaveha is the same thing, so it seems redundant. Alter Rebbe, after the explanation, is going to explain that Tziyun refers to a level of the neshama, a deeper level of the neshama, which that level of the neshama, you can't really call her a captive. Meaning to say, that level of the neshama is beyond anything, any klippa, and therefore it's not revealed, but you can't really call it a captive. Then you have a level of neshama, which is mamish in captivity. So these are the two levels of the neshama that the pasuk is referring to. That's what the Alter Rebbe will get to at the end of the Maimer. But before that, there's a journey that we need to go on before we can appreciate that. So hinich siv. So the Alter Rebbe goes into a pasuk, which that is really a portal, a entryway to understand the neshama, to understand what the neshama is. One of the commandments is that the Eibishter is telling us to follow the mitzvahs, and it says, which I commanded you today. It just doesn't say which I commanded you, which I commanded you today. The fact that the Torah uses the word hayoim tells us pirush koyal kol yoim. It doesn't. It's not specific on a specific day, but every day is that day. The Eibishter today, the fourth day of Tavshin Pei Dalid, the Eibishter commanded us. It's not yesterday or the day before. It's today. Ki b'chol yoim, and from here the Chazal say that b'chol yoim yeh beinecha chadashim. Every day it has to be chadashim. Kachadashim, it has to be new. Okay, so the fact that that's what the Hayim alludes to, and Chazal explained that it needs to be today, we have to feel that the Eibishter commanded us today to that particular mitzvah, or the Torah that we learn is given to us today. But how does a person reach that? To say it and to not mean it, that's not Chassidus is opposed to that. To do something and to ki'ilu, fool yourself. Obviously, that's not what Chassidus is here to instruct us. In other words, the fact that there's a mitzvah, or there's a directive that we need to feel it's like today, either like today or actually today, means that there is a method through Avodah, we can actually capture that, and we can actually appreciate that, and we can actually mean that. So, mitzad the Eibishter, it's true, it's today, because it's beyond time. So if it's something that's beyond time, it's not yesterday, not the day before, every day. It's like happening right now. But how does a Yid who has a directive to perceive that and to be aware of that and to connect with that, how do we do that? That's the question that Alter Rebbe asks. So again, this is a question because is a gateway, an opening to try to understand the neshama. The neshama, who is able to have that experience that the Eibishter commanded us today? Only the neshama. Every other creation, other than the neshama, can have that experience, because every other creation is bound by time. So if it's bound by time, and so therefore, something that happened yesterday can't be seen as happening today. That's a contradiction. Only something which is infinite, doesn't have that limitation, is able to have that perception. So that's why I said this question is really an entry point to try to understand the neshama, to recognize the neshama, to understand who we are. And because of who we are, therefore we're able to have that realization. The Yuvan Bahagdim, so understand by prefacing, the purpose of the neshama came down from above. Shaho Yusham, when we say above, what do we mean when we say above? We mean higher than creation. Above, he says beyond creation. The neshama was there prior to the 6 days of creation. So in order to appreciate that, Alter Rebbe says, what is the highest form of creation that we know? The highest form of creation doesn't even actually say clearly in the Torah. When the Torah recounts exactly what happened during creation, the highest form of creation is not clear there. It doesn't say anything about malachim, angels. Angels is the highest form of creation. It's a spiritual creation. So one might think it doesn't say it clearly, so it wasn't created. The Gemara says no. In fact, there's two opinions in the Gemara that Alter Rebbe brings. When the malachim were created, either on day 2 or day 5, and each one brings proof from the psukim that allude to the creation of malachim. But the bottom line is that even malachim, even angels, angelic figures, which are the highest form that we can imagine, spiritual forms, even that was created. The neshama wasn't created. That's what we mean when we say the neshama was there. The yerida of the neshama, the descent of the neshama began lemaila. What do we mean? Lemaila, we mean here beyond creation. It's before creation, meaning the neshama wasn't created. So we have to understand what that means. What does it mean the neshama wasn't created? So the Alter Rebbe will bring a mashal which will help us understand that. But first, let's see this, what we just said inside. Ki ha-malachim shenisava b'maaseh bereshis, the malachim which were created b'maaseh bereshis, beruach piv yisbarach. So you see, the word piv is highlighted because the creation of malachim and everything else is through Hashem's mouth. It means through an utterance, like we said, the basara mamaris nivra elam. With 10 utterances, the Eibishter brought everything into being. Let there be, let there be, let there be. Brought everything into existence. Yesh reimer b'sheni v'yesh reimer b'chamishi. And Alter Rebbe brings the reference of chamishi, v'oif ye'oifif. That's what the Gemara says. V'oif ye'oifif. So it talks about an oif. The Eibishter is creating a bird. But this alludes to malachim. The whole idea of malachim, obviously, we say malachim have wings, right? That's Middle Ages, the art, malachim. Obviously, they don't have wings; they're not physical, but it's described as such because when you look in the Nevi'im, when you look in the prophets, so it describes malachim with wings. Now, obviously, we're not talking about a physical wing. We're talking about something much more abstract, but they understand just like they understood Moshe Rabbeinu. When it says Moshe Rabbeinu, it says here they actually were mistaken. It says that his face shined, but they understood the word shine as means a horn. So they put a horn on Moshe Rabbeinu. That was just a misinterpretation of the Hebrew word. Over here it actually says wings. So, but it's not the misinterpretation. Wings means wings, but we're talking about something abstract. It doesn't refer to physical wings. But al kopanim, so the neshamas, the malachim were created on the 5th day of creation, or the 2nd day of creation. Va'oif, the Gemara says, va'oif zemichal. This va'oif yo'oifev, that makes reference to the malach michal. There are 2 types of malachim. There are malachim which were created, and we say it in Shema, in the brachas of Shema. You have the malachim which were created in the 6 days of creation. And they still exist. For example, Malach, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel. These are the malachim, and they also refer to camps of malachim. Each one has a different avodah. But then you have malachim which are created every day, constantly. But over here we're talking about that were created by Sheishis and Bereshis. We're talking about the malachim that were created, even those malachim which are still here today. which were created then, they were created. They were created as part, just like everything else in the world that was created. But the neshamis, shenim shechu mebchinas machshava. So here the Alter Rebbe gives a mashal. He uses a mashal to understand the difference between a malach and a neshama. The neshama, we said, is ruach piv, comes from dibur. Malach. But the neshama comes from machshava. So machshava hayakodim sheshim ebesh. What's the difference between machshava and dibur? Mashal, the mashal of machshava, thought and speech. So we know dibur you can turn off. Not only could you turn off, it is by inherently, like it says in Koheles, eis lachshes. There's a time to be quiet, time to speak. In other words, dibur has a state. There's a period of silence, and then you have speech. Machshava is constantly flowing, continuously. What is the significance of that? The fact that it constantly flows means that the levush, the garment of machshava, is completely connected. It's called the levush hamiyuchad, is one with the neshama, and therefore just like the neshama is constant, so to the machshava also is a continuous flow of machshava. You can't turn your thoughts off. But again, this is a mashal. This is a mashal to understand, just like machshava, which machshava is continuous. Why? Because it's connected and one with the neshama. So too, the neshama is like machshava with the Eibishter, not like dibur, which dibur is something that comes into existence. In other words, there's a pre-dibur, and then there's dibur means that there's a state of silence when there's no dibur. Then dibur comes and there's now an existence, a new existence. But machshava is there constantly, continuously. So too the neshama, which is like the mashal of machshava, is continuous, is one with the Eibishter, and therefore being one with the Eibishter means that it's always there even before the world was created. And that's how we see the maila of the neshama over everything else that was created. In other words, through the mashal of machshava and dibur, we can appreciate the maila of neshama. The neshama was there even pre-creation. And the Alter Rebbe brings a raya, a proof, also from Chazal, that the neshamas were also there prior to creation. It says, without explaining the depth of that Maimer Chazal, but only alluding to it, because Alter Rebbe really just wants to bring out the fact that the neshama was there even pre-creation. It says, "B'mi nimlach." With who did the Eibishter seek counsel? Kaviyachol. Should he create the world or should he not create the world? With the neshama of tzadikim. So what do we see from there? That the neshamas were there before creation. Because if they weren't there before creation, then this would not make sense. How can he seek counsel with them before they existed? The whole idea of seeking counsel was whether or not he should create. You're going to say, it says tzadikim. So if it says tzadikim, so maybe all the neshamas of tzadikim were here before. But we're out to explain that every neshama of a yid was there before creation. Alter Rebbe Bavaran said. He says, "V'loi tzadikim levad, ela k'dichsi v'amech kulam tzadikim." So every yid is a tzadik. So once we've now established that every yid is a tzadik, meaning every yid has a neshama, and that neshama, you realize the maila of the neshama, that the neshama was there even prior to creation. So this is what we meant. The neshamas came milamaila. Milamaila means higher than creation. And then the neshama v'iridas and beguv, but the neshama came down into the body. So in other words, it came into creation, into the world, into the finite. V'iridas and beguv u'tzerech aliyah. So the purpose of that descent is for an aliyah, is that the neshama should ascend to even a higher place. In other words, higher than machshava. Right? The neshama comes from machshava. So as a result of the yerida, what the purpose of the yerida is that the neshama should have an aliyah. It says, there's a lashon, it says, that neshamas don't need tikkun. Everything in the world needs a tikkun, needs to be fixed. Just like, that's the way the Eibusher made it. Just like the mashal that the Gemara says, just like, because there was a whole discussion between Rabbi Akiva and the Min regarding bris milah. If the Eibusher wanted a bris milah, wanted circumcision, so he should have created a kid circumcised. So Rabbi Akiva told him, everything in the world that the Eibusher created, now why he did it that way is another discussion, but everything that required a tikkun, requires to be fixed. And he brings a mashal of a type of bean, of turmusin, a type of bean, you can't eat it raw. You have to cook it. You have to, the Gemara says there, you have to soak it and prepare it, and then you cook it, then it becomes soft, and it's edible, you can eat. Everything in the world has to go through that process of fixing it, of making it, preparing it, that it should then be edible, then it should be consumed. Then it reaches its purpose. The neshama, though, doesn't need a tikkun. The neshama is here to be metakin, but through the yerida, the neshama has an aliyah. Aliyah is not a tikkun. Aliyah just means that it ascends to even a higher place than from where it came from. So the Alter Rebbe asks, what is the concept of the aliyah? The neshama anyway is ala b'machshava. So what kind of the neshama we said is higher than the creation, meaning higher than the dibur. It comes from a machshava. It's one with the Eibusher, as the machshava is one. The levush, the garment of machshava, is one with the neshama. So it's continuously, it's completely connected with that. So what is the aliyah that the neshama has? So with that, the Alter Rebbe says that's what we allude to when we daven. In the beginning, we start davening. The first thing we say is really to answer the question and to come to that awareness of this, the fact that the neshama, the aliyah of the neshama. What do we say? So hine yesh levayir, what we say, alikai neshama shnesata b'tayrei. Right? Now the truth, and the Alter Rebbe says, it's the first thing that we should be saying when we wake up. We actually say Moidani. Why? Because we can't say this right when we get up. Because we can't say Hashem's name, because our hands are impure. But if it wouldn't be for the impurity of the hands. And the first thing we need to become present with, we need to be aware, is our neshama. Because that's our true existence, our true purpose, our true guide and awareness of how to navigate and what to do in life is the neshama. So the first thing when a person goes to sleep, the Gemara says, is 1/60th of death. So it's a 60th of what it's like to actually die. So in other words, there is that aspect of death, of an end, and now it's a new beginning. Chadashim labkarim. It's a new beginning. Every morning is a new beginning. So we wake up. The first thing we need to know is become aware of who we are and what we need to do. So we have to draw our attention immediately to the main purpose, which is the neshama. So the truth is that we should really start out right when we open our eyes with this prayer that we say, "Likai neshama shnesata b'taherei." Soon we'll examine what we're saying, but that should be the first thing that we say. We don't say it because our hands are impure. So we have to say a miniature of that. We say Moidani, because Moidani doesn't have Hashem's name. So we can recognize that The Moida'ani is recognizing the neshama without mentioning Hashem's name, temporarily until we wash our hands. So we say Moida'ani because we can't say Likai neshama. Our hands are impure. But to wash our hands before we make this, before when we open up our eyes and recognize that we can't do it either. So it's a compromise. Compromise is Moida'ani. But the fact is that right when we open up our eyes, right when that beginning starts, we need to be aware of the neshama. That's what the Alter Rebbe says. And then the Alter Rebbe can explain how that tefillah that we read, Alikai neshama shenasatabi, Tahirahi, is really, is giving us that direction, is giving us that awareness, and telling us what the neshama is, who you are, and what your job is in life, what you need to be doing. Let's see inside. So in order to understand this aliyah, the neshama, so the Alter Rebbe explains, Yesh levar pirush neshama shenasata b'tahirei, v'hu tchilas hatfilah. See how the Alter Rebbe, you see how the Alter Rebbe puts this, he emphasizes it here. He doesn't just go and explain a lekai neshama. It's negeah to explain how this is the beginning of one's connection. Tefillah, one's connection, one's awareness, one's figuring out what he has to do in life. So this is the beginning. Gam koydem la'asher yatzar. Even before asher yatzar. In other words, that's k'mashkasa b'gemara. The Alter Rebbe brings to the Gemara. Ki mitar mishnaseh. As soon as he wakes up from his sleep, oimer lekai neshama shenasata b'teiri. We don't do that. We don't do it because our hands, we're not able to. But this is the beginning of davening, as we see clearly from the Gemara. What are we saying, Pirush? So Tahirahi, the first thing is Tahirahi. So the question is, in other places, we learned about this in different places in Chassidus, but L'chura, how should you start when we want to talk about the neshama? When we want to bring you awareness to the neshama. So the first thing we need to tell the person, is that there's such a thing called the neshama. So you should start it with what? Alikai neshama shenasatabi or shabarasabi, that you created in me. What are we saying? Tahirahi, it's tahar. What is tahar? It's not. It wasn't created yet to say to give the description that it's tahira, that it's pure. You can say that which you created is pure, but it doesn't say that. It says it's pure, and then it says it's created. So we have to explain. That's what Chassidus explains, that actually this tefillah is outlining the neshama, how it is in its most pristine manner, and the most pristine manner, as we said before, the neshama wasn't created. The neshama was there even prior to creation. How do we describe that? How do we describe an entity, an existence of a neshama, without saying that it was created? So we say tahira, it's pure. What does tahira mean? It means it's pure. It doesn't have a sense of self yet. It's completely seamless, selfless. That's what tahira means. Completely pure, meaning to say it doesn't have this sense of self, similar to the world of Atzilus. The world of Atzilus is not a yesh. Where does the beginning of yesh start? A sense of self. When we talk about the bigger picture, is the world of Bria. Higher than Bria is Atzilus. The neshama in its highest form, in its most pristine state, higher than Lamaila Mibria, higher than creation, is Tahirahi. Or even higher than Atzilus. But the point is, it's higher than Bria. So that's what the Alter Rebbe says. He quotes a Zohar, Tahirahi, Mibchinas Tehiru Ilah. Tehiru Ilah. That's a lashon of the Zohar. It's pristine, pure. A mashal for that is also Oisius HaChakika, Golef Glifu, the Oisius HaChakika, as opposed to Oisius HaKsiva, right? When it's engraved and carved in. So it's not a metzius of oisius, as in like something from outside covering. It's part of that. It's one and part of that which it's carved in. So this is Tahiri Atavarasa Ata Yitzarta until Ata Nefachta Bi. That's the neshama, the way the neshama is in the body to give it chayis. But then we say V'ata Mishamra. V'ata Mishamra. We add there's a vav and you. This refers to a level which is even higher than Tahira. This level of V'ata Mishamra is higher than Tahira, and it's there where the neshama, through the neshama descending into the world, the aliyah is that the neshama has as a result of the yerida. That's the aliyah, the ascent that the neshama has. V'ata Mishamra, that refers, that the Alter Rebbe will explain, to guard the V'ata Mishamra that he protects, that the neshama should be able to be contained by the body and be unified by the body, requires a force which is higher than even the neshama, which is higher than the neshama, higher than the body, to put it together. Mafli lasis, as we say. And that's Soviv Kolalmin. And that's the V'ata Mishamra. And that is the aliyah that the neshama has as a result, that it comes to even a higher place, even than Tahira. V'hine kol zman sheneshama b'kirbi, so we end off the bracha moidani, that a person has to have the haidah, even though he doesn't really understand it, but he has to recognize, and he has to be moidah, as we said, moidah chachamim l'remeir, that the truth is that the Eibishter, there's nothing else besides Hashem, even though he doesn't truly recognize it. But first he has to start with Eidah, and only after he starts with Eidah can he come then to the level of Baruch, which is the level where it becomes revealed. And the whole davening that we daven is really a process of taking something which is on the level of Eidah until we get to a realization of bracha, as Alter Rebbe will explain. But in order to do that, you have to have Avos Hashem, which that is what we do when we focus on the Shema. And this recipe of going from Haidah to bracha through Ava, that allows us to reach a place which is higher to the truth of the neshama, which is higher than creation, and with that we understand what it means, kol yom yeh beinecha kechadashim, that every day is new, because the neshama is higher than Zman. And so being that the neshama is higher than Zman, so that's the difference. The ציון, the deeper aspect of the neshama, as we said, that is there, that's not even in Galus, it's there. It's not held captive. That level of the neshama, the level of the neshama, which is v'shaveh. So for that, for the ציון is enough the inyan of mishnayos, or learning Torah. That's ציון b'mishpat. Mishpat is Torah. Then v'shaveh, that level of the neshama, which is actually the more outer level, the not to this deep level of the neshama, which we're referring to ציון, that is held in captivity. And for that, in order to redeem that, we need to have tzedakah, which tzedakah is through having rachmanas on someone else. So the Eibusha is rachmanas on us, and that redeems that level. So there's even the lower aspect of the neshama, which is in captivity, and redeems that, and that's should happen now.